Morning, friends. I'm going to make a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to do some technology, so let me make sure it works. It's a great pleasure to be here to make this presentation, and I'm privileged that I was invited to do this. I chose to use this keynote as a word of reflection and thinking that our network should be looking more to the future. And obviously we are going to look at the past and the present, but more so focusing on the future. And I'm saying this because I think African developing countries are poised for development, but I don't know. So I start with that graph, and all throughout, I'm not so sure whether it is after Aphrc or Aphrc, and I will therefore leave it to you. And I think some of the nuances are starting to come. I think Veronica pointed out some, Alex has pointed out some. So along the line, let's go together on this journey. And I want to use the process of the MDGs as you know them, and here I think Veronica has already said that the health-related MDGs, but some progress, not so much on maternal mortality. But we also know that the work that we do as a network involves all of us and all the areas of the MDGs. I also want to invite you, this PRB slide, to just remember that we must also keep in mind the question of demographic transition as reflected on our journey. And to start with, that indeed there has been progress. You recall the Asian tigers, and in the 60s, the Asian tigers were not very much different from what Africa has been. And so what has gone right there and what hasn't gone right with Africa. But we must also admit that indeed there has been progress everywhere, including in Africa. The incomes and other measurements of human welfare are up. We've seen people living longer and healthier. We are seeing that extreme poverty is reducing, has been cut in half in the past 25 years. Child mortality is improving, and I'll come to that shortly. But we have also seen that the majority of the economies that are growing very fast in the last decade are in Africa. Many countries that were aid dependent are now self-sufficient. Some of them are becoming donors along the line. Since 1970s, we have seen the rising school enrollment in a very impressive way. And life expectancy in Africa has risen from a low 41 to 57. And this could have been even better if it hadn't been for the HIV epidemic. Nonetheless, even if there are these improvements, there has been also, we know, these averages of sure big differences in the country. So some of you are acquainted with the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China. The same gentleman, I think, is an economist, Tim Moner, has come out with this. Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey, that's these countries, after going to the airport again. So that in actual fact, a country like Nigeria, which has been like in terms of ranking, at 39 is going to come up as well, and in 2060, in terms of economic, it will be like number 13. So in Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey, and going in the world mix, as opposed to what was happening here. Of course, here China also showing that it's apart USA. So things are happening, and I think there is hope all over the world. Coming from Africa, we see here countries like Senegal, Rwanda, and Kenya doing very well in reducing underflight mortality. They have done this in the last 10 years. Reducing underflight mortality in countries like in Western Europe, over 30 years they've achieved. So things are happening on the continent. Just more recently, in July 24, we see David Cameron hosting 3 heads of state from East Africa, President Kikwete Tanzania, President Kagame of Rwanda, President Museveni of Uganda, with Belinda, in the London conference on Saturday planning. This I think has again energized that there is also political will. Of course, one would have wished that there are more heads of state at this conference. I think 3 are not enough, but I think there's some question there. But let me also show you a slide that has gotten me in trouble with Police Americans in Uganda on poverty levels. And Uganda is saying it is going to achieve the MDGs on poverty levels. Uganda has reduced poverty from 56 to about now 24. And the green shows the people who are out of poverty. And of course, you know how we measure poverty. We are being modest. But I think the striking thing is that the people in Uganda who are still under poverty, about 1990 and 1992, 9.3 million, and now the people are still under poverty, 10.2. So we tell them, yes, Uganda, you are going to achieve the MDG, but there are still many more people in terms of those absolute numbers, in terms of, and that means they need to do more. Politicians don't like to hear that. But it's the truth, and I think this is why I think, as Alex said, if you, as a researcher, you are able to bring out things, I think you are probably able to impact on what countries should be able to do with their countries and their policies and programs. Of course, the part of the problem with Uganda is that it has a very rapidly growing population, like a number of other countries. And that makes it difficult for them to get their people out of poverty very easily. So what is my message and where are we headed to? Let me go back, take a step back and look at the past a little bit. But when you look at the population growth rate globally in the past, it is the curve that shows that it is increasing, and obviously it is going to increase much faster as we move along. Invasions have also been around, increasing population, and I think the point of increasing population with the modern innovations and the innovations and innovations is there for everybody to see. Urbanization is also going up, and in fact will continue to go up. And projections are that in case of Africa, the tipping point is at 2032, when the number of people living in the urban areas and rural areas will be equal, and thereafter it will be more urbanization and everything else. This obviously has its own challenges, but it brings opportunities as well as you know. But also looking at the population growth that we hit, that the world hit, the 7 billion only last year, it has increasingly taken shorter to reach the next billion. And that the next billion maybe in 2028, 15 years from last year. If we look at 1950, the countries that had a population of more than 50 million, there were by China and India and USA. Looking at 2010, only 3 years ago, going up. And in Africa, Nigeria coming on board as well as African countries joining the top league, and the other countries obviously maintaining their China and India and USA maintaining their positions. If you look at 2050, we see India overtaking China, but also countries like Nigeria and Africa, Ethiopia, and DRC coming on. So we seem to be on the move. If you look at the megacities remain in South Africa and Asia, but we also see Mexico, USA, and Brazil in the lead. In the case of Africa, we see the population increasing. In 1950, Africa having only a share of 9%, currently about 15%, and in 2050, 1/5 of the world population will be in Africa. The population continues to grow fast. But so what is my message here? The message is that in the 20th century, we saw higher population growth rate. We also saw the largest annual population increases. We have seen the shortest doubling time of population. We saw the shortest time to add a billion. We have seen the decrease in potential, and we have seen increasing urbanization, and we have also seen the emergence of megacities. In Africa, and I think this has been talked about, we have averages that match the variations at country level, and we must be mindful about this. Maternal mortality ratios have not changed very much, and in actual fact, if you also look at the map of 20 years later, in the shade about the same. What caused, I use the example of Uganda, what caused the mortality of women, it is pneumonia, it is infections, it is abortion, all of these things that have not changed over time. But we need to be mindful that there are some other underlying causes like HIV/AIDS in some of the African countries, of course malaria and anemia. What is causing child mortality is also well known, and also is preventable, but just be mindful that malnutrition continues to undermine our efforts with child survival programs. In Africa, we still have higher unmet need for family planning, which brings in an opportunity that obviously still undermines our programs. Contraceptive prevalence rate is low in the whole of Africa, and obviously total fertility rate remaining fairly high, except for the bit of the southern African countries, Swaziland and Zimbabwe. But by and large, total fertility remaining very high, including my own country I come from. We see that there is a low prevalence rates and how they are also linked to high maternal mortality rates. This slide shows us that in Uganda, the poor still produce twice as many kids as the richest counterparts, but also that they don't use health facilities in order to deliver in the hospitals as opposed to their richer counterparts. The slide shows us that it helps to control HIV/AIDS because it helps to improve on life expectancy as well, but also to show that where HIV has devastated efforts on life expectancy in the Africa. So going back to the MDGs, where are we and where should we be going? I think we have made some progress, but not enough. And I contend that if we are going to be looking at sustainable development, I think we need to start looking at issues like the demographic dividend to know that Africa is starting to move from high mortality and high fertility to low mortality and low fertility. Obviously, we know that the rate is different from each country, but this is something that we as a network need to see how we can be also seeing how we can help in this transition along the line. We are aware that fertility comes large zone following mortality, But we also know that there is an opportunity if you have a balance in the young, in the working group of population, so that they can take advantage of this. And if they can provide them education and give them employment, jobs, we think we can make a difference. I want to invite you to know that this is not automatic, and I know the gurus are here. I know David Gang is here, John May is here, and others are involved in this, and I hope this will be a big discussion. But for us to know that this is an opportunity that maybe we need to popularize and know that it's not automatic, but clearly we need to help the continent move in this direction. I talk about the democratic confidence because they are aware that, for example, countries like Kenya have vision 2030, Zambia is vision 2030, Tanzania 2020, and my own country, Uganda, has 2040. But we also know that if we are going to get this vision out there, we must pay attention to the issues of fertility. Fertility is an issue that we know that no country has been able to transition from low income to middle income without paying attention to fertility. And I just put this again using Uganda as an example. Slide that I'm actually interested in this one. But if you look at Uganda, by the time it wants to achieve its vision, you will have 83 million people, and 47 million of them will be in the age group of 15 to 64, which is the group that is the working group. And you can imagine if Uganda, a small country, with the current with a population of about 35 million, 35 million now, but in about 30 years from now, if they have 47 million people who are well educated, who have jobs, they can be a good engine of growth of that country. And today I think this is an important message, and that this democratic dividend gives us a lot of opportunity to persuade these countries to think about investing in family planning, in deepening and making sure that the democratic dividend comes fast, but also know that it is a time for us to be supportive of those sectors that can also move with accelerated education and the question of infrastructure and job creation, and all that the good governance and issue of that sector. So I think it is a democratic dividend for us in this community. It's a very good entry point for us to join with the others to move together in the future and for a long time, because I think the democratic dividend is something that we can be talking about for a long time to come. But obviously, as you can see, Africa's population still remains in the pyramid, and it is not yet like we would like to see where the structure has changed and is moving in the right direction. And so as I end my talk, I would like to say that there are still opportunities that we need to take advantage of as a network. We are aware there are processes that like around the ICPD going on, MDG discussions on whether we are going to have sustainable development goals or whatever the MDG government agenda brings. We need to be part of this and know and to make sure that we impact on what is being thought about. There are UN commissions, some of the women and children, accountability and many others. There is the opportunity of the FP 2020, where I think we are saying we want to bring on board another 120 million women to access family planning by 2020. I think a great opportunity along the line. I am aware, and I think as I said, David is here, the World Bank is already talking about, I think there is a publication coming on regarding the studies on democratic dividends in Africa. The African Union started having good interest in this issue. They are not yet there, but I think with some more popularizing and explanation, I think they will come on board. I'm aware that Peter's group as well is doing some modeling on this. I have had a discussion, and I think support from also the Curate and others in terms of supporting other groups as well. And I also know I think PRP is involved in some of this and so many other groups as well. So there are opportunities along the line, and I hope we will be able to take advantage of them in order to make sure that the issues that we are concerned about, that we care so much about, remain high on the agenda along the line. And so again, as I conclude, I bring back my glass, and I thank you very much for your attention.